Well, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. It is such a great pleasure to be here in Vancouver, especially this time of the year. I bring greetings from Eastern Canada, from the Ottawa area, where it is much, much colder. And I can tell you that all my colleagues in the House of Commons are envious that I am here with you today in this beautiful January day in British Columbia. I want to start off by acknowledging that I am joined with a couple of my colleagues, Shannon Stubbs, who is our Shadow Minister for Natural Resources, and Jamie Schmale, who is our Deputy Shadow Minister for Natural Resources. I want to thank them for being here and participating in this event so that they can get to know you and find out more about your concerns as it relates to your industry. Your industry is so important to Canada's economy. We occupy the tough part of North America. It's a place of tremendous opportunity, but it's also a land that just doesn't give it to you so easily. You have to work hard for it. We are blessed with an abundance of natural resources, but it's not always easy to develop them and to succeed. So you, in your industry and countless other industries in Canada, have invented and innovated and tapped into that potential, creating prosperity for all Canadians. And so you deserve a government that helps and supports and doesn't punish your success. I believe Canada needs a Prime Minister and a government that are proud of Canada's resource sector. Across Canada, there are over 3,700 businesses supplying global mining operations, and all of Canada benefits from that. So I want to thank you for the leadership role you play. Also, in a wide variety of areas, both in terms of environmental stewardship and working with Indigenous communities, becoming the largest employer of Indigenous people in Canada. And I say thank you because I know that your industry hasn't seen much gratitude from this current Liberal government. The Trudeau The Trudeau government lobs insults at your industry, warning of the dangers of construction or resource workers coming to work on projects across Canada. And Canadians have gotten to know Trudeau and his Liberals very well over the last 3 years, and I hear from people all across this country that they're tired of paying for his mistakes. These last 3 years have been a mess of regulatory uncertainty. Relationships with key trading partners have been put at risk with Trudeau's failed foreign policy. We need a government that can create and maintain good relationships with key allies and key trading partners. We also need a government that will create a regulatory regime in Canada that industry can count on. Bill C-69, Bill C-68, Bill C-55, it's an alphabet soup of ideological regulatory burden. I believe, and the piece of feedback I get most from proponents and project developers in the natural resource sector is, you tell us where the goalpost is. We'll line up and kick it. Just please don't keep moving it back and forth and side to side. And that's my commitment as Prime Minister of a Conservative government, that we will develop a process that aims to get things done in this country once again. Now, we call Bill C-69 the pipeline killing bill because we know what it will do to oil and gas, but the effects on your industry are also very concerning. The Liberals haven't yet released projects that Bill C-69 will affect, so we need to stand up and hold the government to account on that. So I often get asked, well, what will you do instead? Well, I will start by repealing Bill C-69. It's too flawed. It's too flawed. I will work with all partners, municipal, provincial, Indigenous, provinces and territories, to create a climate you and your investors can have faith in. We will also acknowledge some of the consequences of the previous CEAA process and address those as well. We will correct the regulatory overreach of Bill C-68 because we know that we need common sense and clear environmental policies. And we will recognize that the future of mining in Canada relies on opening the north. Conservatives believe we need to give Northerners the autonomy to make decisions based on their priorities. We reject the Liberal approach, which is to treat the North as one big, giant park. And we are... And I heard the frustration from leaders in the Northwest Territories, Indigenous, First Nations chiefs, elected officials, who were very frustrated that without consultation, a major announcement was made designating vast swaths of land in the North as parkland, and that announcement was made by Justin Trudeau in New York to please environmental lobby groups without any consideration of the impact that that has on people who are living in the North, trying to have a go at it, trying to raise families and build communities. I will reverse that path, and I will engage in true consultations with everyone who is affected by these types of designations. We also need to talk about foreign influence. We know that activist groups from around the world, but specifically those countries that are our competitors, are using funds from foreign entities to attack Canadian industry. And I have spoken with Indigenous leaders frustrated with this government for shutting them out of the benefits of resource development. So now is our chance. We have a chance to change course in Canada. It's an election year, and Canadians are looking for change. The Liberals keep telling us that we've never had it so good, but there is a lot of anxiety out there. People are worried that future generations won't be better off than those who came before them. People used to stop me in the airports and wish me good luck. Now, they're grabbing my arm, digging in a little bit, and saying, "You have to win in October." So my message to all Canadians and to Canadian mining industry is very simple. If the Liberals are re-elected, taxes will go up, the regulatory regime will keep getting heavier, investment and jobs will leave this country. We compete with other countries where you can do exploration 12 months a year. We have to provide incentives as a Canada to keep our industry competitive so that those jobs stay here in Canada and investment opportunities don't leave our country for others around the world. We know that the carbon tax is only going to go up. This is a huge concern for this industry in particular all over Canada, especially in the North. New regulations for fuel standards are also going to make it very difficult for projects to become viable. I'm here for the parents who sit around the dinner table, like mine often did, in a townhouse in South Ottawa, stressing over how they'll make it to the end of the month. I'm going to be here for the small business owners who are often doing things like leveraging their homes to make payroll in the early days of starting a business. I'm going to be here for the mineral explorers who stake it all on a claim with a vision for a mine and all the prosperity that comes with it. We know that budgets don't balance themselves, that you can't borrow your way out of debt, that industry cannot thrive when you choke them with needless red tape, and you can't make others pay for your mistake. Voters, though, across this country are seeing our team come together, working to restore our reputation as a leader in responsible resource development. A team that knows that Canada's economy will thrive when we bring certainty back to our regulatory regime, when we create a competitive business environment so that everybody can succeed. That's my vision. That's my positive conservative vision for this country. I want to thank you all for inviting me here to say a few words with you, and I look forward to answering your questions. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mr. Scheer. I was really glad to hear you talk about Canada as a leader, and I know that we would all agree with that in the room, and also that amongst the Canada as a leader, Vancouver is the leader among the leaders, I'm going to say. This is the real center for the exploration and mining sector. And also an environmental leader, too. I think Canada and our mining sector does a fantastic job on that. So the first question I had, you really already addressed that, and it was around permitting, and I think you gave some specific comments about what you would do in terms of that. So I'm going to move on to question 2. So the federal government has declared an imminent threat to the survival and recovery of the southern mountain caribou in British Columbia under the Species at Risk Act. This has generated a considerable amount of uncertainty and concern among stakeholders and user groups, and the whole process has been quite unacceptable. What would the Conservative Party's plan be to address the challenges related to the Species at Risk Act?
Well, thank you very much for that question. This is a huge area of concern, not just in British Columbia, not just for mining. The Species at Risk Act is often used to block developments in forestry as well, in other parts of the country as well. And I think that we need to have a review of this with a mind to say how can we achieve that balance where we do have robust environmental protection for habitat, for threatened or endangered species, but recognizing that we have to take a more comprehensive view of that and as it relates to the impact on industry. So, for example, I know that some of the concerns that have been raised by the industry is that overall numbers may be healthy, but because of designations of a certain part of the habitat, a different standard is applied to that, and that their concerns and their pointing that fact out is often ignored, the way the legislation is written. So again, I view everything with, I have no problem, and not only do I not have a problem, I want to sit down with people who have environmental concerns and find a way to achieve that balance of allowing industry to grow and jobs to come along with that, but that environmental groups who are only interested in getting to a no aren't true partners in trying to achieve that balance. And hearing both sides, working with both sides of that, but with that view of finding that common ground and finding a solution that allows both to happen. I believe it's possible, but it's not possible when you give greater voice, as this Liberal government has done, to groups and entities that only want to get to a no. That's their sole objective.
And you know, I don't want to be left with the impression the industry isn't concerned about species at risk. Of course we are. It's a case of how can we manage that effectively, and the current process is quite challenged in that regard. Okay, my second question is around financing. So as you know, mineral exploration is a high-risk business that requires access to significant financial capital to be able to undertake those activities. There's alternative investment opportunities, increased regulation, and concerns around the ability to actually move projects forward in Canada. We were pleased to see the federal government have a 5-year extension to flow through financing in the fall fiscal update. But more could be done to ensure Canada's share of mineral exploration expenditures does not erode further. So what would the Conservative Party plan be around supporting the financing of mineral exploration in Canada?
Well, I do want to recognize that the two provisions you mentioned, the flow-through tax credit as well as the exploration tax credit, are extremely valuable to the industry. And we are in that part of our political cycle where we are getting ready for an election campaign. So I can't share with you the specifics of some of the announcements that we are working on. But I am excited to share with you that we do realize the value of those particular types of provisions as making the startup and the front end development costs of mining more easy to bear, and we'll have something very exciting to say in the very short term about what a Conservative government would do to incentivize and facilitate that type of capital investment. So it will be centered around the idea that by providing some assistance on the tax side, you can really create a lot of economic growth and prosperity down the line. And at the end of the day, the government's actually better off in terms of a fiscal position because you've foregone a little bit of tax income on the front end, but then you get all the spin-off benefits as that project carries through to completion.
Right. Well, there's lots of significant mineral deposits still to be discovered in Canada.
Absolutely.
And we need those resources for that. So I'm glad that that's on your radar screen. And
absolutely.
We look forward to seeing more details of that as you're available to release that. Okay, my next question is, what would the Conservative Party do to create certainty for industry and Indigenous communities related to the development of mineral resources?
This is a key issue now. Obviously, it's always an issue in the mining sector, and with recent court rulings as it pertains to projects like Northern Gateway and Trans Mountain, also in the oil and gas sector as well. And one of the things that the courts have consistently ruled is that the government, it's the Crown that has the Crown that has the responsibility to do the consultation. It has to be real. It can't just be ticking a box or sitting there taking notes to say, well, we consulted because we listened. So part of my plan to get pipelines built in this country includes a whole section on getting consultations right, and that involves appointing a special ministerial representative to be involved in the consultation process to ensure that it's dynamic, that where concerns are raised, they are addressed, they are acknowledged, that there's back and forth between the groups that are raising it. And also we are working on a series of policies that would ensure that responsibility is not just dumped on the proponent itself, because when investors are looking at, I don't need to tell you in this room, when investors are looking at where to start a project or where to invest, if they have no confidence that after spending millions and millions of dollars to go through the early stages, that there's any certainty on that, then they won't make those decisions, they'll go elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And I was chatting with someone earlier this morning that was pointing out the difference in Canada, where it can be 20 years between a site is explored and a mine starts actually putting out...
or longer.
Or longer. And there was a mine in Australia that just did a lithium mine from start to finish in 3 years. So there are frameworks around the world that we can look to. Mm-hmm. I don't see anything in Bill C-68 or C-69 that will shorten those timelines. And so my commitment is for everything from First Nations consultations to other aspects of the regulatory regime to have, I want to beat the Australians on this. I don't want them to have a competitive edge on us.
Yeah, they're always trying to get one step ahead of us.
Yeah, I mean, I love our Australian friends, but it's a healthy competition. I'd like to have that edge on them.
Yeah, well, and so thank you very much. I mean, you touched on in your comments and in the answers many of the key things that are really important to our industry. Of course, permitting, being able to finance exploration, being able to work effectively with Indigenous nations and all Canadians, and seeing an opportunity really to move great projects forward in a reasonable time frame, so the financing doesn't run out before we can get there. I don't want to, so we're going to have to cut the questions there. I don't want to leave the geologists from their rocks for too long, so I really want to thank Mr. Scheer for coming all the way out from Ottawa last night to join us here on the last day. And so on behalf of AME, I would like to present a gift of appreciation for kicking off the session this morning. So on behalf of all our speakers at Roundup 2019, AME has made a contribution to the Moose Hide campaign. In the card we have for you, we've enclosed a card describing the campaign along with a moose hide square that you can wear. The hide signifies a commitment to honor, respect, and protect the women and children in your lives, working towards a goal of ending violence against women and children. We invite all delegates to learn about the campaign through moosehidecampaign.ca. In addition, we also have a small gift of appreciation for you speaking today. And again, thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Directors of AME, please join me in thanking Andrew Scheer.